What you got to understand too is we're not hostage rescue dudes. We're not CQB guys. We're Marine Corps infantry. We're like the bulldozer of the military. Like you want a major problem solved, you throw Marine infantry at it, and we're going to destroy everything in front of us. My dad was a U.S. Capitol Police officer in D.C. My mom worked for the FBI for a little bit and then worked for the Prince William County government. But I grew up outside of Quantico, so I was surrounded by a lot of Marines growing up.
Was the 9/11 attacks any motivation for you?
I had decided I wanted to be a Marine before 9/11. I was in college when that all happened, but I had already made the decision to go in. It just reinforced the decision I had already made.
Where did you do your ROTC?
Virginia Military Institute.
Okay. And then after you were commissioned, where did you go after that?
I went to the basic school at Quantico, then infantry officers course, also at Quantico, and then checked into 1-8 after that.
So you really didn't even have to leave the neighborhood.
No, I didn't. Yeah, my parents were 20 minutes away, so it was great, great and bad, just because being that close to home, but it was good. I checked into 1-8 in I think April of '04. We the battalion had a training event out in March Air Force Base. I think it's Riverside, Southern California, just in preparation for the deployment to Iraq. So we did that in May, and then we deployed in June.
And where did you go once you got to Iraq?
So initially we went to Al-Assad. We were out of Al-Assad Air Base, and we operated mainly around Haditha in Al-Anbar province.
What were the general conditions then?
So when we got there, I would kind of describe it as a transition phase from the initial invasion the previous year into what would become the counterinsurgency fight. So when we got there in the summer of '04, the insurgency was active, but compared to the events in Fallujah in November, it was pretty permissive. We'd get rocket attacks occasionally. Occasionally somebody would hit an IED. We'd get hit with mortars. First platoon was ambushed in Haditha, but relatively speaking, it wasn't too bad. After the first Battle of Fallujah that went April of '04, we got there in June. So there was always this kind of discussion on the periphery of when are we going to go back into Fallujah and clear it out, because it was pretty well recognized that it had become a somewhat of a safe haven for insurgents. So I remember sometime in the summer, the battalion with the battalion leadership went out. We went out to an overpass where you could see Fallujah in the distance. We all had binoculars and whatnot. We essentially did kind of a leader's recon from a distance, just to kind of see what the city looked like, and kind of discuss options for how we would go in there. That was really the first time it kind of clicked in my head that we may be going in there, but nothing was ever definitive until we finally got the word. We started to kind of get indications that it would go, that something was going to go down. We were at Al-Assad at the time, and we started to get indications that something was going down in Fallujah. But it was all close hold. Nothing official came down. And then I just remember one night, my XO woke me and my roommate up, and we're like, "Hey," they're like, "Pack your stuff, get the platoon ready. We're going to Fallujah." And like middle of the night notification, we headed down to in and around Camp Fallujah.
Wow. So not a lot of
No.
Yeah. And then in terms of the assignment specifically given to your platoon and your company
For the assault?
for the initial assault.
Yeah, so our objective was the mayor's complex. So, I mean, the broader operation had other units gaining footholds and securing certain routes, and then our company, Alpha Company, was tasked with shooting into the center of Fallujah where the mayor's complex was, and seizing that and holding it and waiting for the rest of the battalion to come up online with us. And my platoon was tasked with securing one portion of the perimeter of the mayor's complex.
What's going through your mind right before you start this assignment? Is there just focus on the mission? Is there a little bit of apprehension? What's going through your mind?
I mean, all of that. So we ended up pushing in on 10 November. We got to the assembly area just north of Fallujah, I think on the 8th. And those 2 days, we dug fighting holes and just hung out there until they gave us the go. But those 2 days, we prepped the battlefield. So a lot of artillery fire, airstrikes, targeting certain things so that when we push in, it's a little easier. And so it's artillery, 24/7, airstrike, so we're just sitting there anticipating what's to come as, we bomb and soften the target. And then the night initial entry was made was like this tremendous display of warfare. The breach goes. We fired Mikliks. Are you familiar with a Miklik? I may screw the acronym up, but it's mine clearing line charge. It's like 1,000 pounds of explosives that shoot out in a big rope looking thing, but it's more like a fire hose kind of looking thing, and it's designed to blast a lane open, clear mines and IEDs. Well, they shot a couple of those into the city, and it's just observing that is just shocking. Just the explosion and the fire and whatnot. So, and then people start shooting, and you can see machine guns going and tracers, and we're just there waiting for all of this to go down until we get the word to go in. So you can only imagine what's going through your mind. Getting word that you get casualties with the breaching unit, and you can just observe the whole thing. So a lot of anxiety, and then for me, it's just the question of, how will I perform, because we had been shot at, but like not really shot at. So that, will I be the person that I need to be to serve the platoon? And that weighs heavy on you.
Did you face much resistance on the way to the mayor's office?
No. So the breach went, and we basically passed through that friendly line and then shot all the way down into the center of the city. So at one point, our company was the most forward unit in all 6 of the battalions that were online. What we came to find out later in the operation is the insurgents didn't do a whole lot at night, and I can talk about that later. But we got in there, and we got up to the mayor's complex, and tanks shot some holes into the wall, and then we just drove in with tracks, and then executed, the plan. So no resistance on entry. As soon as the sun came up, that's when all hell broke loose. So the mayor's you'd have to kind of look at a map, but the battle space geometry had the mayor's complex right on regimental boundary, which initially wasn't a huge deal, but it became a huge deal because it was, with that boundary comes a lot of control measures, like who can shoot where, who can go where. Also, it's another regiment. Like, how do you talk to those guys? So anyways, we get in there, everybody gets to their positions, sun comes up, and we start taking fire from every single direction. Like, you have the mayor's complex, 360 degrees, taking fire. We just hunkered down and found fighting positions and just started to give them hell, as best we could.
How do you organize that?
Organized chaos is a kind of a unique thing. For one, you rely on your NCOs, right? And I had great NCOs. Those guys are warriors. My sergeants and my corporals, they knew what they were doing. They knew what their assignment was. They knew what their sectors of fire were, and they managed their squads. And then I just moved from squad to squad, made adjustments as needed, got support as needed, ammo, anything that they needed. I was there coordinating with the company commander, working fires, fire support, that sort of thing. So eventually the rest of the battalion comes up online. That took about 24 hours. We kind of reorganized there in the mayor's complex to accommodate everybody else that had come up online with us. And then I'm fairly confident it was 11 November. We got the word that we're going into the assault. We're leaving our fixed defensive positions, and we're going to locate and close with the enemy.
And that meant house to house?
It meant house to house. So that's probably the most nervous I've been in my life. Because it's like leaving the comfort of your home. Like when you're behind a wall or, behind a window, and you can kind of you've got all the protection. When you go into the assault, it's a totally different game. It's what we're designed to do, but certainly had some nerves. So we get organized in the mayor's complex, the company. We had already had a platoon that had pushed forward from the mayor's complex to gain a foothold on the south side of a road that we call it Fran. It's a phase line. It was named phase line Fran, but essentially it was like a kind of like a 6-lane highway. It was kind of like 395. It was like a major highway the main highway that ran through the center of Fallujah. So it was a lot of road to run across. And what the battalion did was they took our weapons company, our heavy guns, 50 cals, Mark 19s, our missiles, javelin anti-tank missiles, and they basically said, go. Those guys set up in buildings, started firing. and I took my platoon and ran across Fran to essentially come abreast of the other platoon that was on the other side of the highway, Elliot Ackerman's platoon. And as soon as we got across the road, we made it across the road, and we affectionately call this battle Haji Alley, is
right.
what we call it. I don't know who coined it or how it became such, but it's like our little battle within a battle. But we crossed the road. I was with Leo's squad. They were in the lead. We crossed the road and we hit the alley, and the alley probably went down, I don't know, there was like a 25, 50 meter section, and then it had a hard jut to the left and to the right. And when we hit that little juncture right there, they were like waiting on us, and it was on. I mean, they were in the streets. Well, I got up there, and as soon as I got up to that little corner, the small gunners started clacking off small rounds, rockets. It's like a bazooka kind of thing, if you don't know what a SMAW is. And then it was just a running gunfight for several hours.
The enemy obviously knows the area better.
Yep.
How do you, or what disadvantages did that present, and how did you deal with it?
So, I mean, an urban environment is terrible no matter how you look at it. Anybody that's in a house that has the bead on you, and you try and go into a house that's occupied with bad guys, you're already at a great disadvantage. In most situations, knowing what I know now, and I learned fairly quickly is you don't go into a house that's occupied by an insurgent. And what you got to understand too is like, we're not hostage rescue dudes. We're not CQB guys. We're Marine Corps infantry, and like we're like the bulldozer of the military. Like you want a major problem solved, you throw Marine infantry at it, and we're going to destroy everything in front of us. We're not going to go in there. And so what I learned is to use the tools that we had. So I had 2 tanks in the lead, and I can remember Leo was up there, and they've got on the back of a tank, they've got a little radio. They call it a grunt phone. And what we did is we took the grunt phone and we put a 50-foot wire on it, so you could talk to the tank and still hide behind cover. Because usually there's like a little cord, but we put a long cord on it. And Leo got on there and he said something like, "I need you to destroy everything in front of us from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So basically that 180-degree radius in front of us, tanks, they shoot the house, follow it up with some machine gun, and just so that effectively pushed the insurgents back. Like they couldn't withstand that. And then we would go through and clean up. I had guys on rooftops going from rooftop to rooftop. I was on the ground in the street behind the tanks, and we just methodically did that, just step by step. We didn't move any faster than we needed to. We didn't rush. There obviously was a sense of urgency, but I think, and you'll talk with Aaron Cunningham. He was my company commander. I attribute success throughout this battle, but especially this day, to his patience in allowing us to set conditions to move methodically. Because commanders can sometimes have a tendency to rush. Like, we got to get to the next thing. We got to like apply pressure. Well, if you're effective and methodical, tanks 3 to 9, blowing things up, move one step forward, you're gonna have momentum. You're gonna have this like tremendous pressure that you're placing on the enemy, and you're not rushing, but that pressure just becomes so much that you force them out, force them back, kill them, whatever.
Is there a particular method or strategy for going in and making sure it's secure?
No, so like, I described how methodical it is. Even though it was methodical and seemingly thorough, we weren't able to clear every room and every house. We hit the problem areas. We hit the areas where, at least on this day, where we knew they were, and then we moved on. We just, kept the momentum. I don't know how long that fight was. Several hours. We fought until the sun went down, and we left the mayor's complex probably at 2 o'clock, 1400 in the afternoon. So I mean, it was exhausting, but the risk was you'd bypass enemy, which I'm sure we did, but we ended up at the end of the city, we ended up going back and back clearing. That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. As you move along, the insurgents that were there, did they generally try to engage mostly, or did a lot of them just try to flee and fight another day?
For that particular day, it was more of like a run and gun battle. So, as we would dislodge them, they'd shoot us and then break contact and move back. That's more or less kind of what was going on.
How would you describe them as fighters? Tactically, organization-wise, that kind of thing?
Most of them were foreign fighters. From what I recall, in 2004, we weren't fighting an Iraqi insurgency. We were fighting foreign fighters, Syrians, extremists from other nations, surrounding nations that made the journey to get there. They were not well equipped, but you could tell somebody was financing them. They tended to wear the same shoes. When we'd come up on them, they'd have rolls of money, like somebody had financed. There were some similarities between all of them. In terms of fighters, so what I always tell people is you never underestimate the enemy, right? Like a guy with a gun, an idiot with a gun can still be a major threat to you. So at no point did we ever underestimate them. But they would move in small groups, 2s and 4s. We never encountered, from what I recall, large formations of the enemy. But they would move in small cells, which allowed them to move quietly with a low signature. It was hard to find them.
And then as you engage them one-on-one when you're in these houses, and they're is it just instinct? Is it training kicking in? Is it, I gotta shoot before he shoots me? What's the strategy?
Yeah. It's more, so, like, let me back up to Haji Ali, because that'll help answer that question. For somebody who's in the business of gunfighting, like a Marine infantry guy, like I am, and like the people you're going to talk to, I think there's a few things that need to happen, like a quality they need to possess and something that they need to do to be effective gunfighters. One, you got to be an optimist, because Marines are put in the most terrible positions on the planet, and they have to figure a way to be successful. So if you're a pessimist, like, you're going to get in your own head and not be effective. So you got to be an optimist about your ability to solve a significant problem. 2, you have to make peace with death. And I think that's probably that's a hard thing to do. For me, it happened in that alley fight. And once you make peace with death, like you don't want to die for sure, but when you make peace with it, everything's pretty easy after that. It can still be scary a little bit, but it becomes more instinctual, like you mentioned. You're not worried about what's around the corner. You just go. And so that's kind of that's my own personal kind of feeling and takeaway from my situation. Somebody else may have a different one, but that's mine.
So after that very intense first day, how did the following days unfold?
I mean, it was somewhat similar, but it wasn't as congested, like this congested alley fight. It was kind of a little bit of a different flavor going forward. We pushed on, and we ended up in the guys will call it the Alamo. It was, in hindsight, probably not the best position to take, but it's where we ended up for about 24 hours, and it was a kind of a lone house out in kind of an open area. It was kind of like a field, like a muddy desert field kind of area in the middle of the city, and we became a target, and we couldn't get out of there. And it was a lot of fighting from that position. Leo was wounded there. Fox was wounded there. It was crazy. We fought in shifts. Like it was all day, just getting shot at. And at this point we're 48, 72 hours into it. Like people need to rest. And there were only so many places you could fight from, so we'd work from shifts. We were up on the rooftop. That's where Leo and Fox were wounded. They shot a RPG into the rooftop. And I remember it's like a 3 or 4 foot brick kind of like parapet. It was just like a brick wall on the roof, and we were up there fighting from there, and it was like limestone bricks, so they weren't real resilient. So bullets were going through. The enemy was shooting the brick, and bullets were going through. They were hitting us, but like not hurting us because the brick would stop it enough, and it got crazy up there. So I just remember trying to figure it out, and I took a knee to get on the radio, and that's when the RPG hit. All those limestone bricks just went everywhere. Fox was hit, Leo was hit, and I was like, you know what? Let's just get off this rooftop. Fight from the windows, fight from other areas, but this rooftop is just too much. And so that's what we did. But we were pinned down there at least a night. I remember the regimental commander, Colonel Tucker, he showed up to the position, and he couldn't leave. He laid on one of the, it was like a lower level outside porch where we did a lot of the command and control from, and did some fighting from there. But the wall on it was low, so we had to lay to talk on the radios and do our coordination, and then kneel to fight. But he showed up, the regimental commander for RCT 7, and he couldn't leave. He was stuck.
How'd you get out of there?
We backed tracks. We had blew a hole when we went into the Alamo. From what I remember, we blew a hole in the side with a SMAW, and we backed a track up, dropped the ramp, we ran into the track, and then another one came in and we fed in, and then we basically pushed south from the Alamo, got out of the tracks, gained a foothold, and then just kind of continued the fight. December 9th, I think, is the day we left Fallujah. Almost a month after we pushed in, exactly. I think we had 11 wounded, and we lost Bradley. We were ready to get out of there for sure. It's one of those things where, before Fallujah, Marines being Marines, they're like, when are we going to get into a real gunfight already? Like, we came here to fight, like we want to fight, like that's what we came to do. But, after the first few days of Fallujah, like, you've had enough. You're ready to, and then you start losing people, and the reality of war sets in. You're ready to be done, and come December 9th, we were ready to be done.
You are still active duty.
Mm-hmm.
Now 20 years of experience since Fallujah. How did that experience inform your thinking over the rest of your career?
Yeah. So it was such a, profound experience for any Marine that it has in many ways shaped my career for sure, and influenced it. But, Lieutenant, now Lieutenant Colonel, your perspective changes over the years. But, for me, I think the biggest takeaway, especially as I've become more and more senior, is not taking any unnecessary risks. Because how I said, Marines, we want to get in the fight. We want to get in the fight. Yeah, we want to get in the fight. But we want to make sure we've got a good, clear objective. We're not looking to fight just to fight. Because when you start to put, when you make the decision that it's a necessary risk to put somebody's life in danger, you got to make sure that it's the right risk and it's the right thing. So I went back to Iraq again, a second time. I had a rifle company command that I took to Afghanistan, and ended up being an OPSO twice and a battalion commander in 2-8. And Marines want to push the limit. And listen, like, I'm all about pushing the limit when it's the appropriate time. And I think you can't teach a leader how to assess risk. You have to learn how to assess it through experience. And I think, from my opinion, units that I have led have benefited from my experience in Fallujah and how I took no unnecessary risk in doing whatever it is we're doing, in training or in combat.